All right. This is the last, believe it or not, of our webinar series that we've been conducting since October. I can't believe it's been that long already. But it's been a great, fun experience, I think. Um, this is going to be a very interactive webinar. So I hope that you're ready to speak. We've kind of been in the mode of listening in the past webinars, and today we really want to make this engaging and open this up to all of you as participants and learn a little bit from you. Pretend like we have handpicked you to be on a panel, just like we have done for the other webinars, and we want to hear directly from you on some of the thoughts that you have or things that you're working on as we go through each of the topics today. So just to start out, I do, just as we have in the other webinars, we want to do a brief introduction of who we are, where we're from, what we've been up to. I am Jennifer Rapp, and I am the Vice President of Pathways and Partnerships at CORD, the Center for Occupational Research and Development. You may know, especially if you've attended some of the other webinars we've done, that CORD is a national nonprofit with 45 years of experience in career pathway design and workforce development, primarily in STEM and technical fields, but that's not exclusive either. One of the key components of CORD's work is helping educators and employers collaborate to build their community's talent pipeline. Today's conversation, as I mentioned, is the last in a series of webinars focused on sharing insights and actionable strategies for building these career pathways that align with industry needs and support learner success. Today is an opportunity for us to reflect and share conversation about what we've learned over the course of the webinar series. So I hope you're ready to share and have some conversation and learn from each other in the webinar as well. First, a little background on CORD. As I mentioned, CORD is a national nonprofit that has worked in all 50 states and beyond over the past 4 decades. And we continually draw from our experience base of best practices from projects conducted at the federal, state, and local levels. Our mission focuses on helping educators like yourselves help learners of all ages realize success in the career path of their choice. This year, we're celebrating 45 years of leading projects and networks across the country focused on the 3 tenets that you see up on the screen. Related to this, CORD established NCPN, which was originally the National Tech Prep Network in 1991. So that's been around for a while as well. For 33 years, this network has been offering conferences, workshops, publications, to facilitate the exchange of promising practices and innovation. So proud to be connected to NCPN as well, and the work that we do. At NCPN's annual conference, NCPN Connect, educators, employers, workforce development leaders, and community partners all come together to network and learn from each other how to build career pathways that foster that individual success, business growth, and community vibrancy. This year, the conference officially moves from the fall to February. It's coming up quick. So at the end of this month, we'll all be in Austin, Texas for NCPN Connect 2025. And we're going to talk a little bit more on that later in the webinar and provide a few more details for you. Okay, as noted, this is the last of our webinar series. It's an opportunity for us to reflect and have conversation about what we've learned over the course of the webinar series and what to look forward to at the upcoming NCPN Connect conference. You can see on the screen the series of webinars that we've done since October 18th, so several months ago. All the webinars in this series have been recorded and are available via the link provided in your confirmation email. And I believe, Liz, if you could put that in the chat at some point during the webinar, that would be great. So Again, you're welcome to go back and listen to those recordings if you weren't able to attend, or even if you were able to attend, if you just want to go back and refresh your memories on what was talked about and what we learned from all the dynamic panels that we had on each of those webinars. Okay. Before we launch into our discussion, let's find out a little bit more about you and if you attended any of the previous webinars. So Liz, let's go ahead and launch our poll, see who we have here and what kind of attendance we've had in those other webinars from those who are here with us today.
Working on it. Hang on just a second.
Okay, sure. No problem.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. All right, so we have that poll launched. Let's see. Just curious, this is not a graded assignment, or you won't be judged one way or the other. We just want to know how many of you have been able to join us in all these webinars, or if you've listened to some or have attended one or a few, or maybe all five. All right. Great. Looks like we have some good number that attended more than one of the webinars. Some have listened to the recordings of the webinars. And some of you, this is your first webinar of the series. So welcome. Glad you could join us today. You get to hear everything that's happened throughout the course of the webinars, and hopefully it'll pique your interest enough to want to go back and listen to the recordings that we have for each of those webinars that we conducted. All right, I think we'll go ahead and end that poll and jump into our discussion today. Right. All right, as noted through our series, the webinars and our NCPN conference actually are built on our framework for career pathways alignment. You can see the graphic here on the slide. The first webinar on October 18th laid the groundwork for this by providing a snapshot of the framework. It features an industry-informed career pathways ecosystem with a continuous feedback loop, and you can see that demonstrated in the graphic itself. It places the evolving skill and personal needs of a community's learners front and center, so that you see a person in the middle of this graphic representing the learner. Most importantly, it leverages the unique strengths and resources of partners across the community. Excuse me. The NCPN Connected Webinar Series has been an opportunity to learn more and hear directly from practitioners about how they are engaging in each of the components of the framework. Over the past 10 years, CORD has led numerous technical assistance projects at the national level for the U.S. Department of Education and the National Science Foundation to test practices supporting rapidly changing workforce demands. The 4 components that you see here are proven essential for making systemic change to support credential attainment. So at the very top of this, you see the coordinated ecosystem of industry, K-12, workforce agencies, and community organization, a necessary component to the systemic change that is necessary. Following that, we see employer engagement. So engaging employers to identify talent needs and strategies for collaboration. Below that, we see designing career pathways. And this is using that employer input to design pathways built on industry-validated curriculum and credentials. And then lastly, but not, of course, of any less importance, is supporting completion, which is clearing any hurdles preventing learners from progressing through and along the pathway from whether it be from credit to non-credit or across credit integration, wraparound services, and all those things that are necessary to support the success of the learners along the way. So our webinar series has focused on each of these components. We've had dynamic panels to talk specifically about how they are addressing and working in each of these spaces. Today, we're going to review each of these webinars. We're going to talk a little bit about what we learned, and then also hear a little bit from any of you who may have attended these webinars in what you learned and possibly what you are doing in these spaces as well. Okay, next. Okay, let's go back in time to November 1st and reflect on the value of employer engagement and what we heard from the first dynamic panel that we hosted way back in November. This webinar was specifically on strategic employer engagement. We know that employer engagement is a strategy to identify and integrate employer input and feedback into programs and activities. We also know that this is not a one and done. So this is all about building a relationship, a working relationship where employers and the institutions view each other as strategic partners, and that this needs to be an ongoing, frequent, and coordinating effort on both ends. So the strategy is important, and it can't be one-sided. It needs to be mutually beneficial. And I think we heard that resonated clearly in the panel and what they shared with us. So let me give a little bit more detail about that panel just to refresh our memory. This webinar was a conversation with educators, and we actually had the opportunity to bring their employers on as well. We talked about strategies for leveraging the employer and faculty expertise. So how did they work together and share the expertise across education and industry to drive innovation and ensure that students are workforce ready? Our panelists were, our panel was comprised of two educators, Marcy Gale, who is from Central Virginia Community College, and she is a mechatronics program head and the faculty member there. We also had Justin Starr, who is from the Community College of Allegheny County, and he is the endowed professor of advanced technology for the college. In addition to those faculty, we had their employer partners. And so Marcy's partners, Rob and Steve, are both from MD Handy, which is a company that they work very closely with in their mechatronics program. We also heard from Rachel Maurer, who is with the German American Chamber of Commerce, the Pittsburgh chapter of that, and a very strong partner in Justin's program. So I want to just pause here and see if open it up to any of you participants, if you were on this webinar and if you remember anything, any items that stood out to you. I have some that I will share, but I want to open it up to the field and see if there's anything that anyone wants to share who may have listened to that conversation. Feel free to unmute yourselves or type in the chat. I am going to pull up my notes and also share in some conversation. No one has anything to share in the chat. How many of you, curious to know if anyone attended this webinar, maybe put that in the chat. And I won't put you on the spot, I promise, even if you did attend. Right. I really encourage you, if you weren't able to attend, to go back and listen to these recordings. We learned so much from all the panelists in all of the webinars that we had. In particular, in this particular panel, we heard how Justin and Rachel, in particular, work very closely. The Community College of Allegheny County has been very successful in their apprenticeship programs. And this has been as a result of the close collaboration that they've had with the German American Chamber of Commerce. In fact, Justin mentioned it within the webinar itself that it is because of that partnership and the relationships that they have with employers that they were able to create a brand new apprenticeship program for EV technology, which is a pretty unique program across the country. And as a result of obviously the German connection and the fact that in some cases like the EV technology area, Germany is further ahead than the United States, and they were able to learn and share best practices with their German partners because of this connection that they have with the German American Chamber. We also heard from Marcy and Rob and Steve in particular about how they have benefited greatly in their curriculum design because of the interaction and the feedback that they get directly from their employees. And Rob and Steve both talked about how beneficial that is to them, even as employers, because they are seeing the benefits. They are seeing students come out of the program that are workplace ready and have the skill sets necessary for them to hire them on without additional training. So we learned a lot from all of these industry partners about how necessary it was to have constant collaboration, especially in these areas of mechatronics where things change so quickly. And that there is no way that the college curriculum can stay up to date without that continual engagement with the employers directly so they can react quickly as the skill sets change. One of the things that really stood out to me in this panel, and anyone else that attended may have recognized this as well, but there was clearly a strong level of mutual respect and admiration between the employers and their industry partners, mutually respective, right? So you could just see in their hear in their voice how much each respected the work that they did and how they all valued the partnerships that they had, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level as well. So I think it was very rewarding to see that level of relationship that was present within both of these programs. There was also an obvious level of trust between everyone. So employers obviously trusted that the educators were teaching what was necessary and that they were truly valued and heard in their guidance to the education program. And vice versa. There was true respect and trust from the educators of the industry leaders in what they were hearing was true, and that they were sharing the best and brightest knowledge that they had so that they can incorporate it into their curriculum and the program that they had. One of the other things that stood out to me in this conversation was how much they valued direct connection to the students. So how important it was to actually get employers right in front of the students themselves, whether they be as guest speakers in a classroom or having opportunities for the students to come to the companies themselves and experience what it was like within the company walls. and vice versa. They also provided, obviously, through the apprenticeship programs, many opportunities for learners to come right into the workplace, but also direct opportunities for students to come into and interact directly with the employers themselves. um, One of the things that was also discussed in the panel was that every model of employer engagement looks a little bit different. So it becomes a very customized and personal model that works for everybody. So, for instance, in the case of Justin and Rachel, in the employer engagement model that Community College of Allegheny County has adapted has been the BUILT model. And that has been very successful for them in keeping up with their curriculum and having that structured approach to employer engagement. At the same time, Marcy and her employers are have an advisory committee model that is very effective as well, but it's customized to their own needs and their own schedules and their own cycle of how they interact with the employers on a regular basis. So just a few high level thoughts that I have. There were so many more, but it was very obvious that the benefits of this employer engagement were significant for these programs in keeping them current and providing opportunities for students to really learn about the workforce. I want to jump into the next slide because it again is related to this conversation that we've had about employer engagement. In each of our webinars throughout the series, we've launched a poll at the very beginning just to gauge where our participants are in terms of their perception of their efforts. And so the poll for this particular webinar was how you would characterize your organization's efforts with respect to employer engagement to support the career pathway development. So you can see here on the screen the percentage of the respondents back on that webinar and what we heard from the participants that were there that day. We had a good number, 55%, who believed that they were making steady progress in this area. And then we had almost an equal amount, 25% and 20%, that were 20% that felt like they were in a pretty good place with their employer engagement strategies. And then 25% that believed they had started, but were still in the early stages. The good thing is that no one on the webinar hadn't started doing the work in some way. So that's positive. That's a great thing. And at the same time, there weren't any who participated in that particular webinar who said that they were working on it but have encountered significant barriers. So I think those are both good messages that there's good work happening out there. So I'd like to now provide an opportunity for anyone to share, perhaps today, especially if you weren't able to be on that first webinar, where you are in this journey, and maybe share a practice, or even if you have a barrier that you'd like to throw out there. I want to just, again, open it up to the field, to the participants here, and see if anyone has anything they'd like to share. Feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself. It's like we have a quiet group.
Hey, Jennifer, I'm happy.
There we go, Kevin. Yes, thank you.
I think here for Sci Tech, we have kind of a mixed bag, right? We have some programs are doing amazing work, and all of them are doing amazing work. But in terms of this, advanced manufacturing, it is doing really well. They've used the BUILT model though since I think 2017, and so now what we're trying to do is emulate that across the whole college. And so, how do we get some of that training for those individuals? And it's not that faculty are not doing a good job, but I think we have to help them understand how to, one, engage with employers. How do you build those? because they've not really, maybe they haven't known that's been their responsibility, right? So maybe that's a change. So we have to change some of that. And so anyway, I won't say that's a barrier, but that is an opportunity for us to try to build the right built for every single one. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but so we can build that whole foundation.
Yeah, that does make perfect sense. And it kind of goes back to the comment I made about every program is unique and every relationship with every employer or group of employers is unique. And so what fits with one may not exactly fit with another. And it's really a matter of learning what those nuances are, learning what those personalities are, and developing those relationships to fit that. So thank you, Kevin, for sharing that. And
Jennifer,
wish you
just
the
to
best in
add,
all of it.
I think it's also another comment on that is which ones prefer to meet face to face and which ones online, because that's even a little bit of a difference in, managing that. But it's all great things to be looking at and working through.
Right. Yep. Sounds like you're doing some great work. So thank you for sharing. Anyone
Hey,
else?
Lisa Smelser from Central Carolina Community College. Kevin, thank you so much for sharing. I would say we're in a very similar place with employer engagement and using the built model. And you may find me in your inbox about advanced manufacturing. That's one space that we want to roll into in the future. We've had great success with the built model with our biotechnology programs. And it's exciting to see industry come back with more asks to us. That full circle piece, I think, is exciting. So, for example, we focused on process technicians, and then now they have said they want to work on quality control technicians. So that's an exciting development that came from them, not from us.
Wonderful, Lisa. That's the kind of stuff we like to hear. So when employers are leading the conversation and asking for things, that's huge success. So thank you for that. And thank you for connecting with Kevin. And that's what this is about today. We want to foster more of that cross collaboration and connecting. So thank you for that. All right. Anyone else? I will take one more and then we'll move on to our next topic. Thank you as well, because I needed to rest my voice for a minute. Okay, super. All right, well, let's move on to the second. Well, actually, it was the third of our webinar series on November 15th. This webinar was all about creating and aligning seamless career pathways for all learners. So just a little review of what that particular webinar and panel was. This is all about creating those seamless pathways that support learners in their success as they move through the pathway. So this is the third component that we looked at in the framework, and it focuses on the design and implementation of seamless pathways for all learners. So building stackable credentials that are aligned across secondary and post-secondary and to employment opportunities, and bringing in the adult education programs to see how you can connect with those adult learners and bring them up to speed so they can enter a college credit program and be successful. And then collaboratively developing these pathways and these programs so that they're seamless to the students themselves. So we had, again, a great panel that talked about this component, where we really dug into how to create and align these seamless pathways through stackable credentials. We had representatives from adult education as well as the high school level and community college level talking about the work that they are doing to create these building blocks for in-demand skills and employment opportunities and eventual career advancement. So we had Rick Vaughn from Rio Salado College in Arizona and his partner, Elizabeth Cole, who is the Director of Outreach Partners and Workforce Development. And is really focused in the adult education area. So we got to hear a lot from Elizabeth and Rick about how they have created a pathway in the semiconductor industry that targets adult education learners. And it's essentially an IET, if you're familiar with the adult education, integrated education and training model. And one of the big things that they talked about was how not only were they raising up the skill level of these learners, but even more, they were raising the competence of these learners that they could have a successful career, especially in an emerging technology area like semiconductors. We also had Paul Hansfield, who is an associate professor of computer science at Sinclair Community College in Ohio, and his partner, Melissa Goodall, from Miami Valley Career Technical School, and also an adjunct at Sinclair Community College in Ohio. And again, they talked about their partnership from a high school to college level in the area of data analytics. Sorry. So again, in emerging technology, and they too spoke about how they were able to provide exposure to these learners at the high school level who may not have had any idea what data analytics was, and that they could have a successful career in it, and that they were providing these opportunities for these high school students to really dig in and be successful at the high school level and be supported in the high school, and then transition to the college program and be very successful in this field where, again, they may not have ever thought that they could be successful. Melissa talked a lot about some of the ways that she was building in. Actually, Melissa and Elizabeth both, they all talked about how they were bringing in opportunities for the learners to learn what we call durable skills, so that those skills that are really necessary in the workforce today, like continual learning, responsibility, those kinds of things. All of the panelists agreed that this is not done without an ecosystem, without a team of individuals that are supporting the learners along the way. Things like success coaches or college and career navigators, teaching those basic durable skills. Elizabeth specifically talked about how important it was to have their learners go through a customer service course, because it, again, allowed them to build confidence in themselves and in being a worker. And so even though the semiconductor industry may not be customer service specifically, it was giving them the skill set that they needed to be successful in any work that they would do. They really wrapped their arms around each of the learners, whether they're at the high school level or at the adult education level. And they all treat the whole students so that they can become independent learners, because it doesn't matter what occupation we're in anymore. It's really all about teaching them to be independent workers. Okay, those were just a few things that stood out to me from that panel. They also, I will say, provided great opportunities for the learners, whether they be from an adult education area or from the high school level, to really understand what a day in the life of that professional, whether they be a data analytics professional or working in the semiconductor industry, they were exposed to what that would look like, so that they could see themselves in that industry as a career path. So again, I'd like to share the poll that was done in that particular webinar. This one had to do with developing seamless career pathways across the ecosystem. So we saw The majority of the participants in that webinar agreed that they were making steady progress in this area. So I'd love, again, just to open it up to anyone that wants to talk a little bit about where you feel you are in creating these pathways, whether it be within high school or adult education or all, and what that might look like for you. So feel free to unmute yourself or say something in the chat. And I'm going to give my voice a rest.
Jennifer, you can always tell I'm that student in class that just cannot handle the silence, right? So I have to feel like I have to speak. But anyway, I'll tell you some things that we're doing here at Sci Tech that I'm pretty excited about, and maybe some more opportunities, and maybe some others can enlighten us on some other things they're doing. But one thing that we started was a logistics program. And so what this was on the continuing education side of the house, workforce side of the house. But if they complete this program, they also get an internship, and it has multiple exits. So the very first week is an HRD class. So in other words, is this a career that you're really situated in? You know, what are are we working in an environment that's a warehouse, et cetera? Also, there was opportunities to have trauma resiliency. Some of these individuals come from different pasts, maybe even a criminal past or something of that nature, right? And so how do we help manage through that and talk through that? The second week was a forklift class. And so then they get the OSHA 10, et cetera, and they can leave at that point if they would like. And then last, we had a 10-week class, 8 weeks of instruction that really mirrored our curriculum class for Logistics 110, and also 2 weeks of a paid internship with employers. And so that was really good. After that, they can continue to work if they like. Hopefully that internship was an opportunity for them to show themselves and get employed. Or they could also get credit for prior learning, continue on the supply chain program of study. What we saw was about half and half of the students. Half of them are going straight to work, and the other half are continuing their education. But really good program for what we're doing. We also created that with the IET program. So that was partnered in our English as a second language. And so through that program, some of those students were able to do that. Through state funds with the IET, they can have a tutor with them to help them understand some of the concepts, like, forklift that may be unique to them. So that's one thing we're doing. Of course, we have a lot of dual enrollment. One thing that I was talking about that I would like to see what others are doing, what I would love to have, we have a college transfer early college. I wish we had like a CTE early college, right? In other words, instead of doing a college transfer track, why don't we have you in here doing diesel and heavy equipment or whatever you name your program of study? But just share that to see if others have anything to share as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Love how you're bringing work-based learning to the forefront in those programs, especially for adult learners. And your focus on CTE transfer instead of, or CTE in particular, instead of just transfer programs. So something we'd like to hear more about. All right, looks like we have Lisa, who did put a message in the chat. She says, we're working to better articulate high school CTE credit to college credit. We do have high school CCP and CTE areas. So thank you, Lisa, for that. Anyone else want to share?
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, Robert. Good. Hi. Thank you.
This is my first time in one of these webinars, but I am excited that I will be presenting at the NCPN in Austin, February 26th. I think the 28th is my session, but I'll be there. My title is connecting community to the American Job Center. So I actually graduated from the NCPN leadership cohort, the first one ever, I think, during the pandemic.
Yay, good for you.
And some of my staff also have been part of the leadership cohort as well these past couple years. To answer this question, in 2018, the Chicago Citywide Literacy Coalition, I'll scale it, hired me from Title I, the workforce side, and actually moved me over to the adult education Title II part of the ecosystem, and housed me at the unemployment office in Pilsen, so in deep Chicago. And my whole purpose was to connect individuals filing for unemployment, SNAP, TANF, housing. Folks were coming out of the Cook County Jail, which was 3 blocks away, to adult education. And I tracked everything. So folks will file for their transactions, and then I would help them as a career navigator transition into one of 13 programs that were funding this model pilot at the time. Now, 7 years later, my anniversary is this week. We actually have 8 full-time navigators at 8 out of the 10 American job centers. Bringing this human-centered design to the job seeker instead of trying to send everyone to manufacturing or IETs. We were asking them. So at one point, we were called adult education brokers at a conference, which is true. Our customer is a job seeker, and if we're not going to say, hey, we have manufacturing, IT, and healthcare, we're going to ask, what do you want? What are your skills? So for the past 4 years, this is our 5th year, we actually have been contracted by the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, which oversees the WIOA funding here, as a one-stop operator. So we've actually been over the service integration of 10 American job centers in Cook County for the past 4 years. We just got the contract for another 4 years. And I just want to say that what's been at the heart of this has been this neutral entity career navigator, where it's the customer is the job seeker and the providers are just one more option of a career pathway. And it actually has worked out. For the past year and a half, we put in the missing tool, which was a unified referral system. Because folks enter the public workforce system through education, through SNAP, wherever, walk-ins, right? In specific times in their pathway. So then us, by having this unified referral system and knowing who's teaching ESL, who's teaching GED, who's teaching literacy, numeracy, who's teaching digital literacy, that was the biggest, that's one of our programs that has increasingly grown, is that we provide basic digital literacy at these American job centers for those job seekers that need that support. So it's kind of like this navigator has just become this workforce navigator. So I just wanted to share that with you, that's been very seamless. We continue to duplicate it. We continue to, this model just complements the other stakeholders in the workforce ecosystem. And I just wanted to share that that's really what I'm going to be presenting at in Austin, Texas. But we've really been in our bubble here in Chicago and Illinois, but ready to share.
That's great. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I love that model, and I'm excited to hear about it more at NCPN. And how you are really building that ecosystem. We talked about the ecosystem and how important that is, and how communication across that ecosystem is critical for putting the learner at the center. All right, so I want to quickly run through our last webinar that we had just previous to the one today. It was 2 weeks ago, actually, which is a nice transition from what we just heard from Robert, because it's all about removing barriers and supporting credential completion. So it's those navigators who are helping the learners, or any of the supports or services that we're providing the learners, so that we can remove the barriers that might be preventing them from being successful in these career pathways. So on January 24th, 2 weeks ago, again, we had a great panel that talked all about recognizing all learners as learners by providing things like credit for prior learning, flexible course schedules, flexible delivery modes, and all those wraparound services that are necessary to support adults or even high schoolers along the way. So how do we do that? What does that look like? We had a conversation with Kenyetta Richmond from Forsyth Technical College in North Carolina. And then we also had Linda Van Doren from Emily Griffith Technical College in Colorado, and one of her counterparts, Tisha Chapman, who is the Vice President of Student Services at Emily Griffith Technical College. And we heard so many great things about how they are supporting the learner holistically You could see in the case of Kenyatta in her position, she is actually the executive director of what they call the Holistic Support Services Center at Forsyth Technical College. So they have a whole department that's focusing on that success in a holistic way. We heard about how each of these institutions just wrap their arms around the learners and meet them where they're at. They're very individualized in how they support each of the learners that they bring into their institutions. And they do it in so many different ways through diversity of modalities, meaning they can offer hybrid and online opportunities. They can offer courses during the day or at night or on weekends or in whatever form or fashion that might be necessary for individuals with non-traditional schedules for taking courses. But essentially, they talked about how important just building relationship were with all of these students, how important those relationships are, and that an individual is not going to be successful unless they feel like there is a level of trust in who they are working with and who is helping them be successful along the way. Both institutions talked about how they have food pantries to supply food for individuals, or they have opportunities for childcare or vouchers for transportation. And they are using their ecosystem. So foundations are supporting them in their work and funding them in different ways so that they can support these learners along the way. They have an early alert system so that if a learner is struggling, they will be notified and they can wrap their arms around them and help them be successful. So many great strategies and best practices that we heard from the panel 2 weeks ago related to removing barriers. And again, I'll close this with the results of the poll from that webinar where we asked about their organization's efforts in supporting all learners as learners. And great to see that 46% say they're making steady progress in this area. So the career pathways are only going to be as successful as the learners who are going through those. So it was very obvious in this conversation how necessary that is. We did have some conversation about 27% say they're working on it, but have encountered barriers. Some of that is funding related. Some of that is, providing, figuring out who the partners and who the ecosystem can be to be able to support these learners in all the diverse ways that they need to be supported in. So again, just like we have for the other two topics, I'd like to open this up to anyone that wants to share for a few minutes before we have some final closing thoughts about the upcoming NCPN conference and give you back the rest of your day. So anyone want to share? Thank you, Robert, for putting your information about the session in the chat.
Yeah, so I want to just share this quick point. So in October of 2023, Chicago received an influx of new arrivals, 34,000 specifically. And they were all housed in one of 22 shelters across Chicago. And during that week, I was assigned by the Department of Commerce to be part of the new arrivals workforce working group. As my role over the 10 American Job Centers in the public workforce system, and that I had navigators housed at these AJCs. So what we did is that this was because of the executive order that folks received temporarily permit status, which allowed them to give work permits. So I was tasked to identify folks that obtained their work permits to get them jobs, and I asked one question: how long does it take or a work permit to come from the day of application? They said between 120 and 150 days. So then I went back to my staff, all my staff, and the centers. And I said, we will be working with the folks at the shelters, the legal, immigrant, and housing stakeholders. And we will create a pipeline for those new arrivals to register in ESL classes. We registered about 91% to a point that the chancellor, very good friend of mine, Juan Segato at City Colleges, called us and said, we love me some Scala, but I don't have enough ESL teachers. So what we did is we continue to work with the Illinois College Board that oversees adult education, our Title I folks, and the shelters. And we ended up actually hosting, or still hosting because it developed as a program now, ESL courses level 1 and 2 for our new arrivals that obtained their work permits at the American Job Centers to meet the demand. This allowed us to be engaged, and we're still engaged with about 4,300 new arrivals who have obtained their work permits to date, that are no longer in shelters, but have actually been living in a house somewhere in Cook County or in Chicago. So all I'm saying is that we were able to create a pipeline to adult education through our existing program, but just customizing it a little bit, the way we recruited, the way we register, the way we kept in contact with them, because once they left the shelter, they were in another part of the city, so they needed another ESL program. But because us being a literacy coalition, we are in contact with Illinois College Board and Secretary of State funded literacy program. So I just wanted to say that the systems that we had in place, we were able to utilize to bring in this special population. So I just wanted to share that. That's how we were supporting.
Yeah. Good example again of bringing in the ecosystem, all the partners, and figuring out how to make it work and meeting the learners where they're at. So thank you, Robert, for sharing that again. We'll look forward to seeing you at NCPN. So I want to take just the last few minutes today to focus a little bit more on exactly that, NCPN, and talk a little bit more about what is up and coming there, and see, hopefully we'll see all of you there. If not, we hope to see you at future opportunities and in future webinars like this. But I'm going to actually turn over the mic to my colleague, my partner in crime, Liz Ehlers. And she's going to share with us a little bit about NCPN and what we've got coming to you.
Yeah,
there.
we're looking forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully all of you will make it, but we do want to launch a poll to see how many of you are planning on coming. So just put your response. Okay, well, in the interest of time, looks like we've got good response so far from the group. For those that are able to attend, we'll look forward to seeing you guys. And for those who are not, we hope that we will see you in the future at another opportunity. I'll end the poll, share the results. So 38% of you will be coming, 62 not able to attend. Like I said, we hope we'll see you guys again at the next one. And again, at some of the future webinars and things that we'll be hosting for NCPN. At this time, I'm going to share my screen and give you a little tour of Whova. Whova is our online platform that we'll be using to where did Whova go? Hang on just a second and I'll find it in my windows. So many windows open. I know you guys know how that is. Okay. Here we go. Okay, there we go. There's our Whova app. We're looking forward to sharing this with you all. Whova is hopefully going to be a very good, useful tool. Super easy for you guys to navigate. I know not all of you are going to attend the conference, but if you are, we hope this will give you a little preview of how it'll help you streamline your conference experience while we're there. This is what it will look like when you open the Whova app as a end user. We'll go to the agenda and look at, I already had some sessions pulled up, but let's go back to the main agenda. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of that one. I was experimenting earlier and with the different features. So I'm trying to, Trey, are you on? Trying to figure out how to get back out of that particular, well, this is a good example. If you go into, I'll just fast forward to a session. This is one of our pre-conference sessions. As you can see, it is, it features the speakers. You can message the speakers individually. You can use, you can click their profile. You can see all about their experience and what they, and about what their session is. And then you can add it to your agenda, and then it will populate there. And then you will have, once you've gotten your agenda all set, then it will send you reminders, and it will be a good tool for you so that you don't have an aha, oh my goodness, I missed the session, or what was it I was planning on attending? I can't remember. And it will save the inconvenience of having a large program book where you're trying to navigate. This is all online. It's all in the app, and hopefully it'll make it much more convenient and easy for you as you attend the conference. So I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the whole agenda. There we go. Well, the view is different than it was previously. I apologize for that. But back to the, but as Jennifer mentioned, all of our sessions are around the four components of CORD's framework: pathways designs, employer engagement, learner supports, and the pathway ecosystem. So you'll see these headers at the top of each of the sessions. And this one in particular is a pathway design, but some of them have multiple sessions and some have just have one. But anyway, that will help you customize your experience, and you can even filter. On the homepage, on the agenda, you can filter and find the sessions that you want to attend. If you have a specific area of the four components, you can do a filter and search by that, and it will allow you to find the exact sessions that you want to put onto your agenda for the rest of the conference. And again, it'll send you reminders and make it super easy for you to navigate the conference. There's also a community forum where you can see that there's already lots of messages that speakers and some of the other attendees have been posting. So it's a great way to get engaged with your fellow conference attendees. There's some icebreakers. There's some of the speakers have posted different resources and topics that they'll be covering. There's even a ride sharing post where you can coordinate with your fellow attendees if you need to share a ride from the airport or want to do that, or to different venues in Austin while you're there. Just all kinds of different topics here that the speakers and your fellow attendees have been posting. So I encourage you, if you are going to the conference and you're in the app or you haven't downloaded it yet, to do so, where you can access some of these things and do a preview. It's really fun to get engaged and helpful to get engaged before the conference actually takes place. It's got lots of good information, and it'll just make your conference experience that much richer when you arrive. There's also a place for exhibitors, and you can see some of our exhibitors that will be there at the conference, and we'll see our sponsors. I encourage you to take a tour through those. And then there's also a messaging board, so you can message your fellow attendees. We know a lot of the benefits of coming to a conference is to network with your fellow attendees and make those new connections. So we encourage you to use the platform to do the messaging. You can meet up to have coffee with people. You can, talk about different topics, talk about what conference sessions you're attending. So it's a great tool there to reach out to your fellow conference attendees and speakers as well. So we'll post any notifications too throughout the conference on this app. So if there's updates about room changes or any session updates, we'll post those in this, and then you can access that information really quickly there. So if you have the app downloaded, that's really helpful to have already gotten that in on your phone, on your device, so that when you arrive, you're all set. But if you have any questions or you need any assistance, just let us know. There's also some useful guides within Whova so that you can learn on your own about how these different facets of the app will help you throughout the conference. So That is all I have, I think, right now. In the interest of time, we'll probably ought to get moving along. We appreciate you guys coming. Hope we'll see you in Austin.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, back to you.
Please. Yeah. So your timing was perfect. Thank you everyone for attending. And again, if you weren't able to attend the webinars in person, feel free to go back and listen to the recordings that are available to you. And we hope to see many of you at NCPN or at future webinars that we will be hosting. So thank you. Have a good weekend and a good rest of the day today. Thank you, everyone.